Hello everybody, welcome to Sin City Living. My name is Jason. I will be bringing you today's episode. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons and our usual shout out to our patrons. We appreciate all the tips and support. Just going to go towards making the channel better and adding more games. And as a show of appreciation, we've been putting out those exclusive videos weekly. We'll have 3 more coming up this week just for our patrons. If you're curious about it, go ahead and check the description below. And if you guys have any strategies or anything you would like us to film, any questions, anything you would like us to film about, please email us at sincityliving@gmail.com. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So what are we going to cover for today? Well, for today, and this one might be a little bit of a shorter video, I want to go over a real-world case. We do these every so often. Something that we saw not too long ago. This happened at the table that was right next to mine, and it was really cool because it really showed the advantages to the power press method, because a lot of people have, of course, if you play the power press method, you definitely know the disadvantages, which is that you don't hit these hot rolls very, very often at all. But what happens when you do hit it? Well, when this player came on, they had a decent sized bankroll, and they really liked to go for it from the get-go. I believe they only bought in for 500 or 1,000, something along those lines, and they were going blacks out on the table pretty quickly. But they had it in kind of an odd way. They weren't doing something like they weren't doing something like, oh, I don't know, 520 across or something along those lines. I think what it was, I know they were doing $100 each on the 4 and 10, which was key, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But I believe they were only doing something like 80 inside. So they were really going for it on the outside numbers. And in this case, it worked out very, very well for them. So they started out with a $100 4. And the first time that 4 hit, they actually threw in $5, which paid for the vig, and they pressed it all the way. The second time that 4 hit, and it did hit twice, the second time it hit, well, what does this pay? This pays $585, okay? So let me get the 500s out. Pays $585. They went up to 700, collected the rest. So for the next time it hit, what does this pay? This pays $1365. Pays an interesting amount, $1365. So $1365, and where did they take it? They took it to 1,500. Guess what? It hit again. The fourth time it hit, now what does this pay? Well, this pays $2,925, $2,925. So 2,000. Now we'll go ahead and let them throw in $75, so we can just make it 3,000 on the dot. And they went up to 2,000. They actually wanted to go higher, but at the time that was the max. At the table they were at, that was the max that they were allowed to go to. But here's what happened. It hit, now keeping track of the hits right over here. It hit a 5th and a 6th time. So the 5th time it hit, it pays 3,900. They had nothing they could do except collect it. And then the 6th time it hit, it paid 3,900. They collected 2 times after they hit table max. Doesn't matter what else they hit in here, they were happy. This player, in one roll, now again, they started out with a decent amount. They started out with blacks on a couple of these points. But in one roll, they made $10,975. $10,975 off of just one number. They certainly made money off of other numbers, although I'm sure they were pressing in these numbers as well. Everybody I talked to that was on that table remembers almost nothing that occurred here because of what occurred here. And that's the point that we've talked about in the power press method before. That's the point, is that we're looking for that rare roll where the same number hits numerous times. That can either require a long roll, 20 to 30 to 40 minute roll, or it can just require one of those statistics breaking rolls where just the same number rolls repeatedly. Just yesterday, I had a hard 8 roll 3 times back to back to back. That's very statistically unlikely, 1 in 36 chance of happening once, so 1 in 36 times 36 times 36 chance of happening 3 times in a row. Extremely rare, but it does happen. 6 4s rolling before a 7 comes does happen. It actually happens fairly often. I would say for every crew it'll happen at least once a night. Now, that may sound fantastic, but you got to keep in mind this is an 8-hour shift for us, and we're getting a lot of hands going during that time period. So depending on the timing of it, if you tried to just keep playing until it finally happened, you'd lose enormous amounts of money. But at least one number will roll 6 to 8 times, to 10, 12 times even, at least once a shift. But this is why dealers play the power press when we play, because we don't like to sit around on the table for 8 hours at a time. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a grinder where you're just on the tables, just playing to have a good time, playing to have fun. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. I think for a lot of dealers, it's the fact that we are standing on that table for 40 or more hours a week, that when we do want to go out and play recreationally, we don't want to play for 8 hours. We don't want to pull in a whole nother shift on a dice table just from the other side. Because as we're standing on the dice table, we cannot help but sit there and be calculating payouts in our head and watching procedures and watching we just can't help it. It's just natural because it's what we do. So we're just looking to play for a fairly short period of time, and dealers are definitely aggressive. But this was pretty cool. This player hit, the 4. Usually when we see a whole bunch of a really high money roll, it oftentimes does end up being these outside numbers, because it does take, I think, 2 extra hits in general to get a 6 or an 8 up to table max, depending on what it may be, versus the 4 and 10. You can do it a lot faster. They're also a lot harder to hit, but this was a pretty cool roll. This player definitely made some money. Is this, would I have made this much money? Yes and no. It would depend on how the roll went once we hit the table max. Because he hit the table max on the 4th roll. He tried to press it up and was told he could not press it up any higher because he was at the $2,000 table max. And he was at $1,500 at the time. So he pressed it so it got paid $3,000. We'll just say $3,000. Forget the vig. So he pressed it by $500. So he had $2,500 more that he could have played with. So once we're at that table, if I wanted to press it again, I was told I was at the table max. At this point, yeah, I would probably stand fast on that moment, but on the next hit, the one where he got paid $4,000, at that point, what I likely would have done is I likely would have double parked and done a $2,000 put bet with $4,000 odds. So I actually would have had to give up some of my money. But at this point, I'm already up over almost $4,000 even after I give some of the money back. So I would have done this on the 5th hit. So if there were no 6th hit, I would not have won as much money as the player ended up winning. The fact that there was a 6th hit, I would have. Definitely would have, because at that point I would have gotten the $4,000. Again, we're just going to ignore the vig for a minute. I'll just throw that in. Would have gotten the $4,000 from the place bet, but then I also would have gotten the $10,000 from the put bet. But that's just me. And not every casino, by the way, is going to let you do that. If you're at table max on a place bet, some casinos will not allow you to do a put bet or even a come bet that would travel in. They would force your place bet down if you had a come bet that traveled in. And the reason for that is that some casinos don't so much go by a table max. They do have a table max, but they don't so much go by a table max bet versus, like your maximum bet for a place bet. Then you can, of course, do a put bet because the table max, you have a table max on a put bet. They look at a table max as the total amount you can go towards a number. So if you were on, say, a table that had a $10,000 table max, but it was $10,000 to a number, then if you had $10,000 place bet on the floor, you would not be able to have a come bet or a put bet or anything else in here. If you had $5,000 on there, then you would be able to do, say, 2,000 with 3,000 odds, because now you're at $10,000 to the number. So it really depends on the casino and where you're at on whether or not they will allow you to have a maxed out place bet and a come bet or a put bet. So I hope you guys find this one interesting. These real world cases and real world experiences are always fun to share with you guys. And we will catch you guys next time. Thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye.